Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux. Hello again, Startup Nation. I'm Dr. Kate Campbell, and I'm here with my co-host and business partner, aka BP,
Katie Lemieux. Hey, everybody.
We are really excited about today's podcast guest, expert Samara Stone. She is an LCSW and owner of the Stone Foundation and creator of the Perfected Practice System. So welcome, Samara.
Thank you, ladies. So glad to be here.
We can't tell you how excited we are because our audience has been asking for insurance information and how to build an insurance practice. And for so many people, they're really intimidated by that. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. 3 ways to grow a successful pro insurance private practice. So welcome up, Startup Nation.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. It's one of the things I'm most passionate about. So you've got the right lady.
Awesome. And before we get started, we just want to share a few resources with Startup Nation. We're really committed, as you know, to helping and inspiring you along your journey from startup to mastery. And we have 3 different resources. Number 1, make sure you join our exclusive Insider Facebook group if you haven't already. Just request to be a part of the group, and there you'll be able to interact with all of our awesome podcast guest experts and our amazing community. We share resources, collaborate, and it's just great. Number 2, we have a bonus for you, the A to Z cheat sheet, Essentials for Building Your Private Practice. Text the word essentials in all caps to 44222 to get your copy. And last but not least, we are, as you know, passionate about being a resource for you. So make sure to check out our favorite resources on our resources page. Just visit theprivatepracticestartup.com, check out our menu, and you'll see the resources link there and all the resources that we know and love.
With some free goodies. A lot of them have trial runs, 30 days, free this, free that. And,
lots of discounts.
Loves free.
Yes.
So you guys are awesome. I love it. It's fantastic.
So let's share a little bit of information about Samara. So she is a sunny California native with a bright, infectious smile. And it's funny because when we got to see the visual for her the first time, and that was like the first thing I commented on. And she's super bright and cheery, so that's exciting. She has a natural ability to connect with people, and her strong entrepreneurial spirit led her to start her first business in college and has carried over to her unique career in social work. After a decade of building Pro Insurance Group in Maryland, she launched the Perfect Practice in 2014. Through her mentorship and her live events, she has become known for her wealth of knowledge and dynamic presentation style, encouraging mental health professionals to build the practices they really want without the frustration and the guesswork. She's a mom of 3, clinical social worker turned entrepreneur, is an innovative and inspiring leader committed to helping women entrepreneurs grow.
Awesome. I love it.
Oh, that sounds good.
You guys know we like to brag, so let's talk about some accomplishments and accolades. So she was the Women Entrepreneur of the Year, Women-Owned and Managed Enterprise Network Marketing State University in 2015, the top 10 private practice websites with Private Practice Toolbox with Julie Hanks in 2014. Awesome. And we always love to do some fun facts. She's a great baker, loves to grow things, gardens, businesses, and people. I might have to steal that quote.
I love that.
It. Loves all kinds of music, dance, and loves adventure and world travel.
Yes.
So what's your favorite thing to bake?
So I used to make wonderful banana breads. And then this summer I grew zucchinis in the garden. And so I started making zucchini bread, and that's the new favorite. All the kids love it. My husband loves it. I can bake 2 loaves and they're gone in a day.
Oh, I can imagine. That's amazing.
I recently had banana cake. It was like a banana bread cake. It was so good.
That sounds good. I'm trying to dial back this baking habit until I get the exercise habit to match it, right?
Exactly. Maybe you have to turn some music on, dance, and bake at the same time, work up a sweat. I don't know.
That sounds right. That's
a nice visual. Yeah.
Right. Dancing and baking.
So tell us what led you into the business that you're in now.
Oh my goodness. So back in 2005, right at the beginning of 2005, I was working for this really, really unethical organization. And it was interesting because I didn't know they were unethical until about 2 weeks after I started. And right about the same time, I also found out that I was pregnant. So I just felt like, oh my goodness, what do you do? You're in this unethical organization, but clearly I'm pregnant. I said, I'll just wait until the end. But little by little, they kept asking more and more things that I just knew were wrong. And so finally, I kept standing up and saying, I'm sorry, I just can't put my license on this. And eventually we parted ways. And I remember sitting there that night. I was about 4 months pregnant by the time we officially parted ways. And I thought, man, I've got two options. I can either try to go find a job while I'm visibly pregnant, which seems a bit challenging, or I can build something for myself. And it's kind of odd. I guess I didn't really understand how challenging building a business for myself would have been.
For sure.
But I'm kind of glad I went this route because some nearly 12 years later, we've really created an organization that has a huge impact here in Maryland. Not only do we have the outpatient program, but we also have contracts with the school system or other non-mental health settings. We are a continuing education sponsor. You ladies are too, so you know all about that.
Yes,
and then I also mentor other mental health professionals to get them building their practices. And I love this. I couldn't have imagined from January 05 what, December 16 would look like, but I'm sure glad I started the journey.
Yes, it is quite the journey. And when you started out, did you go straight into applying for insurance panels or cash pay or a combo?
I started out right with the insurance companies, and it was a nasty kind of learning curve. It was no kind of fun, ladies, no kind of fun, because there's so much that I did not know about what these insurance companies would require. And I went the route of working with a biller that was going to set up all my credentialing and bill out all my claims. And I remember just watching the mail like a lost puppy, waiting to see whether checks would come. And over they weren't. And after a while, I kind of got the hang of the fact that if I really wanted this to work, I was going to have to learn how to do it myself. And, I'm grateful for having had a business that's allowed me at every step of the way to really get my hands into whatever it is that we're involved in. Sure. And so I think it was about 2008 when I started really committing myself to doing the billing in my practice 100%. And that was an amazing learning curve. And once I mastered that, we were off to the races.
So in the beginning, not only were you giving birth to your private practice, you were also giving birth to a baby. So that's a huge learning curve on both sides, personally and professionally, to go through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What would you say is the best advice that you've ever received as an entrepreneur?
I think the thing that makes the biggest difference is not just the professional growth, but the personal growth. And so I love that you even tied those two together, because for me, that is the magic. That's the secret weapon, is the ability to really allow entrepreneurship to become a lifestyle and to push past the fear and to be courageous and put yourself out there in new and different ways, to take on learning things that you know nothing about, and to be unreasonable and unstoppable in the face of challenge. That's where the magic happens.
Nice. Yeah, it is so important to invest in ourselves just as much, if not more, than what we invest in our businesses.
Every major piece of growth in my business has happened after investing in some sort of a learning program. At 1 year, I was a CEO Accelerator participant with the Small Business Administration. That's when I started doing better contracts, right, with the government. Once I learned from a woman that taught more about online business building, that's when I started launching Perfected Practice. And so each rendition and growth of the business came from someone teaching me what I didn't know, and investing skin in the game to learn it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I just got back from a 3-day conference on real estate investing, and there was this gentleman there that is a sales expert master guru. I was just blown away, and I actually used some of the stuff that he talked about in talking to a potential client yesterday, and instead of losing the client, I got her to schedule an appointment. So utilizing those skills and investing in ourselves is so important. And as therapists, we invest a lot in our training, but we need to invest in the business side. We have to push ourselves in that area. We usually are pretty good at our craft, but not that great at the business savvy. And I know that you're going to talk about that.
Big time. I am big time going to talk about that. And I think I've had the, fortunate experience of having consultants that I've worked with that are so committed to me mastering some of those key business skills. It's made a big difference. My accountant, we had a love-hate relationship in the beginning until she whipped me in the shape with what was required for me to take good care of my business.
Great. And it's so important to have a team around us to support us. And it's the accountant, the lawyers, other professionals, other colleagues. It was so interesting as I'm sitting in this workshop. I'm like, we're always talking about marketing, but sales. Everyone hates the word sales, right? Especially in our field. We don't want to sell. That feels ugly. It feels icky. But I was just like, wow, this is a huge missing. This is how we initially talk to our potential clients. And yeah, we can have great marketing, but if we can't solidify them stepping through our door, then we're missing a huge piece.
Absolutely.
And as entrepreneurs, there's a huge learning curve because as therapists, a lot of us don't have that business background. And then with the insurance realm, that's a whole new realm. Katie and I both have six-figure cash pay private practice setups. And so we don't work with insurance and network. So I'm really curious to hear about your journey and how do therapists learn to build full practices that are insurance-based?
Sure. I think it all starts with the right perspective. It is going to be something new. And so what you just said about being an entrepreneur and opening yourself to kind of the learning process, it's never more true than what it takes to approach working with insurance companies. Because a lot of the problems that people tend to face when they're dealing with insurance comes from not really having gone through the process of learning how to successfully set up their practices from the very start. Mm-hmm. And so everything from credentialing and getting the insurance company panels to open themselves to work with you, to actually learning how to bill a claim and how to read an explanation of benefits. These are the things that most clinicians don't really want to even focus on in the very beginning. But I always say, if you're going to be pro-insurance, that's the first lesson. The very first lesson is getting clear about these pieces. And then we start talking about how to bring clients into the practice. Marketing is important, both in a cash pay or pro-insurance practice. Either way, you've got to be comfortable putting yourself out there. But when you're dealing with a pro-insurance practice, the steep climb to being full it's going to be sharp. I mean, clients are really motivated to use their insurance. Oftentimes, they're going to be seeking that out. And so the biggest thing is making sure you have the infrastructure in place to appropriately serve them and get paid for it before they start knocking on your door, because they're coming. The clients are coming.
What's been most helpful in you getting your infrastructure to be strong so that you can support that steep climb?
Yes. The frequency of mistakes and my quickness to be resilient and rebound. Most of what I learned in setting up a pro-insurance private practice, and for me, we're not just an individual practice, we're a group. At any time, we have somewhere between 10 to 12 therapists on staff, along with the psychiatrist. So for us, it's been every time there's something broken in the system, something that doesn't work well, I go back and I really expose myself to really thinking about what is this problem. I don't take the excuses that are easy for us to offer to ourselves about, well, they should have done this. And well, maybe if they did that. I take full responsibility for every mistake that comes. And then I get real creative in finding solutions. And once I find that one that works, I build it into a system. So no one even has to think about it. We just automatically know what to do. I think another piece that's been really helpful in preparing is having the right team in place. And you mentioned that just a minute ago. I think that the admin team that I have now, they've been with me about 5 years, the two of them, my front office person and my back office person. These ladies, we're like a family, and we work together so beautifully to take care of these clients and the clinicians that serve them. And so I think a part of it is having the right people on the team and then building the right systems so that team knows how to function, and then you're ready.
So talk a little bit about who are those team members, how you found them, and what is the right system?
Yeah. So for me, I always look for people that have the right heart. I'm not as concerned with the skill set because I can teach you how to read an explanation of benefits and how to check for eligibility and how to schedule a client in our software. But what I can't teach you is compassion. And so I always say that our clients are going to come in various negative emotional states. And I need to know that you are able to offer them compassion and excellence and respect in the way that you deal with them. And so when I find the right staff person, this is on the admin side, I always know it's someone that's going to be able to create that holding environment for the client from the moment they walk in the door.
I love that you say that. I had the very fortunate opportunity to be promoted into management and leadership at 26 and 26 years old. And so I started out as a micromanager, right? Because I didn't trust my staff. I didn't know how to. No one ever gave me any leadership abilities. And, I evolved into a true leader and really being able to trust my staff, use them as team. And one of my sayings is hire attitude over skill. Any day. I can teach skill. I can't teach you to have a good attitude. I can't teach you compassion. I can't teach you persistence. I can't do that.
Can't teach character.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So that's so important.
Spot on. You're spot on. You're spot on. And I think the same is true when it comes to hiring the clinician side, because, we all go to school and we learn about how to take care of clients, but not all of us approach the work in the same way, right? And so I look for clinicians that are really familiar with the type of clinical work that they want to do, and that they're trying to establish a progressive expertise in their particular niche. So even though they're a part of our group, I still take on very seriously their ideal client discovery process. We created that process a few years back to help new clinicians as they're joining the practice get clear about, like, who are they uniquely suited to serve? And I borrowed it from the work I was doing with the clinicians that were coming for mentoring, but I figured, hey, it applies in this situation too.
And I'm glad you say that, because Kate and I are ridiculously crazy about branding, always talking about branding. And that's one thing I think our industry lacks, but it's so important. And it's a great way to start. And even if you've started and you're kind of like lost, getting clear on your branding is really important.
It's true. And the messaging that you're going to offer, because that's the beacon of light that your clients are going to be drawn to when they're hurting, late at night. I tell you, early on, I had a website back in 2005, 2006. It's really horrible looking, but I had one. And that website, believe it or not, it was such a conversion tool for clients coming into our practice. Late at night, I would get emails from people that were worried about their children, having just recently had a fight with their spouse, and they're reaching out for help. There's no other place other than your online presence that can offer that 24-hour availability for clients like your web presence can, right? And so, branding and online presence and marketing messaging, all of that, it lets clients know we're a safe space.
Right.
What would you say are some of the biggest challenges in creating a pro insurance private practice?
Yeah, the biggest thing is understanding how insurance companies work. Oftentimes people will say that, they didn't get paid for services that they provided. But if you submit clean claims, 99% of the time they're going to get paid. And I've been doing this for 12 years, and I can tell you, having been someone that did not submit clean claims because I didn't understand how I was supposed to do it, and now being someone that does, it makes a big difference. So it starts with knowing the information that the client has that you're going to be using to contact the insurance company to set up a relationship with them around the work you're going to do for this client. If you have the demographics wrong, the date of birth is wrong, or the membership number is wrong, all of those things are going to equal unpaid claims, right?
Right.
Even knowing how to submit a claim. And these days, things like Simple Practice and, there's therapy notes. There's so many therapist-specific billing practice management softwares that you can use. I think my buddy Rob over at Tame Your Practice has a whole listing where he reviews all of the ones that are available for people to use that really streamline the process of submitting claims. So it doesn't have to feel as overwhelming. But if we don't submit those claims in a timely fashion, or if we're not submitting them with the right information, they're not going to be paid. And that's just kind of the way it goes.
So one of the solutions that sounds like you're talking about is for those who maybe want a pro insurance practice is choose an electronic health record or electronic medical record that really supports good quality billing in regards to submitting claims, correct?
Well, yes, but let me clear up that the electronic medical record doesn't necessarily have to connect with the billing module. Sometimes you can set up to just use the billing module and still keep paper notes, which I don't necessarily recommend, but you can still do that. Having the two together makes it very streamlined and simple for you to just swiftly move through the process. So yes, I would agree with that.
We are all about leveraging technology to do the work. I guess when it works, right? So joking around, it took us like 20 minutes to get on this podcast with you, but we
good. We did good. I think we did it.
We did it.
We had about 5 technological glitches that were unexpected, but hey, it all worked out, right? Persistent.
And that's how you know. That's how you know we're all entrepreneurs. None of us gave up, right? Like we kept on going, right?
That's exactly right. And you were so understanding.
Sure, absolutely.
So I know you talked about tip number 1, so your perspective and your plan, and we're talking about tip number 2, pro-insurance systems, and you really talked about having the right people in place. And so, just walk us maybe through your system.
Sure.
I'm sure we could do a whole nother podcast on that.
Right, but I'm going to give you a nice quick and dirty so that you can see the arc of how a client.
Wait, let me roll my sleeves. All right, I'm ready.
Quick and dirty. But from the moment that a client contacts us in our practice, we do 2 things. We gather all of that demographic information, and we have a form that we use that actually goes through all of what's needed. As a matter of fact, I have one that I can share with your listeners if they're interested. I can give them my guide to insurance verification.
Right.
It's a 1-page sheet that's real helpful. Please remind me because I might forget. But I'll give it to you.
We'll include that in the show notes as well. So when people contact you, they can get that exact document.
Cool beans. I love it. So from there, once you've gathered all that information, because we're a group, we also start thinking about, well, who is this client the right fit for? Because to me, the systems in our practice, there's the concurrent system of clinical work and the business work that has to be happening side by side. And so there is no priority one given over another. If we don't have a therapist that's the right fit for the client, we refer them to another practice. Okay. But if we do, we go forward with getting the authorization in place if one's needed, to verifying their benefits to find out what their copay or coinsurance is going to look like, and making sure we have note of all of that information in their chart, their electronic chart, so that we're appropriately billing the patient as well as the insurance company as we're moving forward. See, most of the time, the client themselves may need to pay a portion of the fee for the work that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So let's say the allowed amount is $85, but they say that the client has to pay $25. So really, you're only expecting $60 from that insurance company, and it's your responsibility to collect the $25 from your client at the time of service. Right? And so we make sure that we do that when someone comes in, that they've signed all of the consents and that they've verified all of the information that's in the chart, and that they actually pay their co-pays at the time of service. You know, that's one of the ones that got me in trouble big time in the beginning. I was uncomfortable asking for the money.
You had
and you guys know about that.
I call it the case of the feel bads.
Yes, I just feel so bad, right? And so if people know that, no one wants to pay, right? And so if they know that, it kind of creates this awkward space for both the client and the clinician. And so we've built systems that allow it to be, like, you cannot schedule an appointment unless you have a balance that's under $45. Like, you just have to keep your balance low. And everyone knows that. It's right there in our policies and procedure. And the front desk actually handles that.
And it's so nice that you have a front desk to handle the payment, so you don't have to worry about that. A lot of times there's solopreneurs and in private practice where therapists are just meeting with their clients, and they have to work through a lot of issues with money and asking for, the fees that they deserve to be paid and all of that. But that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. And honestly, even for my solopreneurs, I encourage them to get the business side of things out of the way at the onset of the appointment. As soon as the client comes in, collect whatever copay needs to be collected. And then we can move on to actually the work, the clinical side of the work we're doing. And we can talk about scheduling at the end of that. That's the formula that we give. I don't know if that's the same of how you all do it, but that's our process.
Right. Yeah. I mean, similar. And I know some people do, payment before, payment after, things like that. It just kind of whatever works for.
Yeah. For me, I require in the initial session, I require that they have a credit card on file. I go ahead and take their payment, so I know that they're good for it at the beginning of the session. We get it out of the way. We get into the nitty gritty and all of the work that they're wanting to do. We schedule at the end, and it's nice and easy breezy. And then I have their credit card on file for future sessions, and we don't have to deal with payment anymore. That's how it works for me.
That's right. And then it's a non-issue, and that's a non-issue. And to be honest, in a pro-insurance practice, if you hold the clients accountable to their balances from the very beginning, it gets so easy for everyone to kind of move through this smoothly because it does become a non-issue. I know that I have to pay the $20. I don't have to wait to see if you're going to ask and avoid paying the $20. It's just pay the $20 or whatever the copay is, and then we move forward. So once that piece is done, that's all front office from our perspective, right? Once the client is then seen, we move into what's called back office. And that's how those claims get submitted and reimbursed on the back end. And I believe that that starts from the moment that the session is complete. There are some codes that we have to use when we're billing pro-insurance practice work. One is the diagnostic code, which I know has been such a source of contention between the cash pay and pro-insurance camps. There's this idea that they're not wanting to diagnose, but anytime you're working with an insurance company, you'll have to, even if it's an adjustment disorder to begin with, something that's a very short 6-month duration that will cover the work that you're looking to do with them without putting any kind of a mar on their overall health record. So once you have that code and the procedure code, which is what we've done, it's either going to be an initial session, a follow-up visit, or sometimes a family visit if you have more than one. And the follow-up visits, they do fall into 2 categories based on time, less than 45 minutes and then less than 60 minutes. So once you bill out those codes, you're sending that to the insurance company. They're processing that claim, and that money is coming right back to you. And I always teach people, you have an option to either have checks mailed out to you, or you can use the electronic funds transfer option, which I highly recommend. It makes things so smooth. Just recently, last Thursday, we had a client that came into the office. We built out the claim. This morning, her money was in our account. So it moves
really fast.
It moves that smoothly. It doesn't have to be, a long drawn out fight with the insurance company for the money. That's not been my experience. Now, have there been times when there were issues? Sure. And we have to follow up on some of those.
Great. Thank you for walking us through your system. So let's just move to tip number 3, which is business savvy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've kind of been talking about that throughout our conversation thus far. It has a lot to do with the money mindset at the beginning, because sometimes, people almost feel like going the pro-insurance route is going to be a shield against having to talk about money. And it just really isn't. You'll still have to look at things like AR, which is really a big deal in a private practice, your accounts receivables, so that you can see, do I have high patient balances, or are there insurance claims that haven't been paid? And if you're not learning how to monitor those, that's where people start to get into the murky zone of feeling like they're not getting paid for their work. Right.
And you need a system for that too. Is how do you follow up? Do you outsource that? Do you do it yourself? When do you follow up? You should have a select time, week, and things like that is really important. And I see double thumbs up. Yep.
I love that you use the word system, because it really is about that. It really, really is about that. So what I find that helps in the very beginning, when you have a small, maybe part-time private practice, I really like to see people do the billing themselves. Get familiar with this, because it's hard to supervise something you don't understand. And when you surrender such a key element in your pro-insurance practice so early on, it only becomes more and more intimidating. And I know that firsthand, because that's what I did. By the time I stepped into the billing function in my practice, we were already billing over 400 claims a month. And so had I learned that when we were billing 100 claims a month or 75 when it was just me, it could have looked so very different. And so I always encourage people to start with that alongside and outsource later.
And as clinicians, we want to make sure that we are practicing to the highest standard, that we're ethical and legal. And if you don't really know how to navigate that and you have someone else doing it for you, you're really putting a lot of trust in their hands. And not everybody out there is ethical.
They're not. And so some of the billers we have billers that are part of the Perfected Practice, resource community. And I really do vet them to make sure that they do not engage in fraudulent billing, and that they are accountable to the practice owner and supporting that practice owner and making sure that they're getting the right information to get claims paid. It's a two-way street when you're doing an outsourced billing arrangement. And we always work with clients around knowing what's going to be the right fit for them at the right time.
Right. And one of the things, as we talk about systems, I mean, we're systems junkies over here. It's really important too, like when you're talking about going through your own stuff and you doing it, one thing that we created, we do scripts. We also do how-to videos. So we've created screencasts and things like that. And so when you get a system down and you're ready to hire a VA or virtual assistant, is you can say, here's all the information, let me train you on it. And then they go to work and you know that they're following your system, which is working. You're not kind of leaving it up to them. And so that's one really important thing. And I encourage whoever's listening today, whether you're just starting out in practice or you've had your practice already, is that think about your future. Don't think about just now. And you're probably going to want to hire an assistant or a front desk person or administrator, and really start thinking about that stuff now and start documenting what you're doing that's working. Because once you hire someone, it's going to be that much easier.
Yeah, it really does take a village, and systems should be your middle name. Yeah, that's just all about systems.
I'm like, wait, just scale that.
I love it. You're right.
Here? Yeah, what's the system here? Nope, there's a little flaw right there. Nope, we missed that. Nope, that's not going to connect to this.
That's right. I love it. I love it. And I love what you said about planning, because the truth is, for a practice to be successful, it has to start with a good life plan. For me, being that I do have 3 children, I guard my time just really, really, really strongly. And so having good structures and a plan for how I wanted my life to look, so that as I started building the practice, it would resonate with what worked for me as an individual. I encourage your listeners to go through that same process themselves. What do I really want for myself? What kind of hours do I want to keep? Who do I really want to serve? And then build your business around your life. So you got a life plan, then a business plan.
A lifestyle business. We are all about that, because you can get into business and it can eat you alive. It can really take over your life if you let it. So having that vision and being very clear on what you want your life to look like outside of the business and setting that up is so important.
As Kate and I coach our, private practice coachees, we talk about vision, mission, culture, branding, lifestyle, business before we even talk about doing the business, because we always say learn from our mistakes, because we just became slave to our own businesses without knowing how to really do it. And we're just like, again, crazy about branding, but also talking about the lifestyle. And that is a conversation I'm always having. Block out your lifestyle first, and then the business will work around it. So thank you for parroting what we say, what we say, living it. It's, this has been great. And you've just been a joy to have, and we've enjoyed our conversation with you.
Yes, absolutely. And so much of what you're talking about is in sync, even though our business models are different, with you having the pro insurance and us being more self-pay. You've talked a lot about how the learning process has been for you and how you've made so many mistakes along the way. And that's not failure. It's part of how you learn and grow and evolve. And what you're passionate about is the same thing we're passionate about, is making sure that our audience doesn't have to make the same mistakes that we did, because everything doesn't have to be done the hard way, So that's why there's resources like you, like us, and a million other people out there to really help people on their private practice journey.
I love it.
Yes.
What did you want to make sure that our listeners really take away from your message today?
Just that it is possible to build a practice that works for you. You really can. I mean, in my practice, we serve lots of people, but I personally stopped seeing clients back in 2008. So there's ways for you to build the practice that's going to fit your lifestyle, for you to have the impact that you want to have. You can just build it directly from your values and then live forward from there. So that is what I encourage people to do.
I just wanted to say thank you, because when you and I spoke about doing this podcast is when you said that, because I've been thinking about that, and you kind of gave me this permission, like it's okay. I don't always have to be a therapist to be a therapist, right? My expression can come in some other way. And that's really what Kate and I are doing and building, is really extending our reach to support other therapists. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you could recommend a great book or resource for our audience related to our topic, what would that be?
I love The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It is probably one of my favorite books. And it's one of those that the very first page you read, it's going to grab you. And I don't know if you're anything like me, like I'll come across a great book and I probably don't read it all the way to the end. I just don't always. This one, 2 days, it was done. And it's going to talk about pushing past resistance and really doing the work that you're here to do in the world, and just showing up like a pro consistently to get it done.
Great. And I think you're the second person to recommend that. So I'll have to read that. But someone at the conference I went to, everyone was talking about eMyth. I'm like, okay, I'm pushing it to the top of my list, I promise. So
that one's good too. eMyth is major. Yep.
Yeah. So I know that you had a giveaway for our audience, but you had also talked about the form. So I don't know if they're two different things, but I just want
They are.
Okay. So go ahead.
They are, but I'll give them both. I'll give them both. So the first thing that I give is it's a guide to building a profitable pro insurance practice. It's the assist building a profitable pro insurance practice. And that is like a 15, 16 page guide that goes through step by step exactly what to do to set up your private practice.
Okay. What an amazing resource.
That's awesome. It does. It gives you everything you need to know, where to go, everything from MPI numbers and tax ID numbers. Oh my, all of it's there. And then the second thing that just came up naturally while we were talking is like the guide to insurance verification. And so that comes a little further down the line once you've already gotten set up with insurance companies. But I'll share that with your listeners in case you just want to know, how to set up systems that really work so that you can have a pro insurance practice that doesn't suck. It doesn't have to suck.
I can see that as the name of your book. Have a pro insurance practice that doesn't suck.
I love that.
And it's funny. I actually have a blog coming up this week. A webinar this week that is titled that. So that's why it slipped in. Yes.
Awesome. Well, we wanted to thank you so much for being here with us. Like I said, you're super bright and cheery, and we love that you're passionate about this topic as well as business. So guess what, Startup Nation, thanks for joining us again today. Make sure you check out our show notes page for all the tips, resources, links from today's show, and that's where we'll have Samara's information on her giveaways. We thank you so much for listening and really value your input. I mean, we do what we do because of you. So it's really helpful when you subscribe, rate, and review, and share our show with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget about those awesome bonuses we mentioned in the beginning of the podcast. They're joining our Facebook group, the A to Z cheat sheet for essentials, and of course our resources. So share with your friends, colleagues. We hope you have an awesome and inspired day, and we look forward to continuing to inspire you from startup to mastery. See you later, Startup Nation.
See you later.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.